Yeah, I was about to say, put the hands up.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Spooky Screen. We are on week 3 of a 9-week journey where we'll be discussing the HBO hit show, The Last of Us. Each week, we'll be doing a new episode review, and this week, we'll be reviewing episode 3. Spoiler alert, we all like this episode.
Sorry.
With me are my hosts for tonight's discussion, Noah, Nick, Dave, and Johnny. If this is the first review you guys are watching, I would recommend going back to episode 1 and starting with that review and then making your way up to episode 3. Public service announcement for those who are watching. This is your official spoiler alert. We will be breaking down episode 3 in bloody gruesome details. So let's get right into it. Did you like this episode? Did you not? Can I again get a quick thumbs up?
I think overall we liked it.
All right, Nick, I see your thumb is like not straight up. It's more of like a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock.
Right.
What does that indicate?
So I did really like this episode, and I liked everything it had to offer. It was beautifully done, fantastic. It really showed a fantastic love story in such a bleak setting, and I think that was really necessary just to show that some good things. It kind of brings you back to your humanity. But I kind of feel like this was almost a waste of an episode because we were so involved with Bill and Frank that we really just left Joel and Ellie. We put them to the wayside. And I feel like we shouldn't have kept it so focused on them. It should have been maybe cut a little shorter. It's a lot for 81 minutes to focus on two characters that aren't the main characters.
You enjoyed the episode with Bill and Frank, but you were more concerned with like the ramifications for the rest of the season, right? Like the storytelling.
Yeah, I feel like we might have to start rushing now.
Johnny, can you give us a quick breakdown of why you like this episode?
I will pick up on Nick's theme a little bit. I thought that the story is a very well told story about these characters who were just introduced, mind you, newly introduced and seemingly concluded in a moment. So, as a non-gamer, someone who doesn't know the story and where it's going, it's confusing to me a little bit by the end because I don't know where it's going to go. But the story and the episode in and of itself is very well done. It's an interesting story. It keeps you engaged with few pieces, and overall, it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable TV show, like better than most TV shows. So, but I have similar concerns for the series.
Noah, what about you? You like this episode? Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts?
Yes, I like this episode a lot. I think it was actually my favorite episode so far. But I am also a gamer. I played the game, so I'm kind of here for the new stuff, and this gave me plenty of new stuff to work with. I really enjoyed that we got a full episode of Bill and Frank and their relationship. They obviously cut a lot out, which might make people mad. Didn't make me mad because I feel like what we got was meaningful, and it really enriched the themes, my favorite themes that Last of Us is about. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm happy they gave Bill a happy ending. Just saying.
It is important.
He deserved one. He deserved one.
Yeah, for Johnny and Dave, since you guys are the non-gamers, like quite different in the video game versus the actual TV show, the depictions of Frank and Bill's. And we can get into that a little bit more. But Dave, before we do, hit us with your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it's really interesting hearing, the gamer's perspective, and then me and Johnny, and I really think this episode wasn't a waste, and I think it was necessary. And even though we had like two pretty action-packed episodes in episode 1 and 2, I still feel like this is like an Archer who's like there's still tension. And I think this third episode, even though it was like a breath of fresh air, kind of like calm before the storm, that's how I viewed it. And I think it was necessary for what impending doom or drama that I anticipate is coming. Like I still felt the tension of the last two episodes, even though this was like a nice, relaxing, beautiful love story.
I really did enjoy Bill and Frank's reinterpretation in episode 3. I think that it enriched the themes, like Noah was saying. And I've been saying in our review of episode 1 and 2, I've been looking for a reason for why this TV show should exist, right? And what it comes down to is, can it differentiate itself from the video game enough? I mean, I felt like with episode 3, I did get that. And we can go into more detail about how they achieved that. But ultimately, I came away from this, incredibly moved by this romance at the end of the world and what it meant and how it was depicted and the acting. I think everything was just done with such a high level of craft, and I just kind of have to admire it and be moved by it. So I really enjoyed episode 3. So, for Dave and Johnny, Nick, I was hoping that you can just kind of break down like maybe the key differences between Bill and Frank that we see in the video game and the TV show.
The major differences between Bill and Frank in the game versus Bill and Frank in the TV show is Bill and Frank in the TV show have a wonderful relationship. We really get to see the framework of their relationship, how they meet. We get to see their struggles. We get to see their successes. We get to see them fall in love. And that's something we never explore in the video game. By the time we meet Bill, he's already a bitter old man and Frank has already disappeared. It's not until later in this particular chapter of the game that Frank is found dead with a suicide note saying that he was infected, and he told Bill that he knew that trying to escape this town was going to kill him, but it was better than trying to keep living with Bill because he just couldn't do it anymore. But at that point, again, like I said, Bill was already an incredibly bitter old doomsday prepper by this point, and even his relationship with Joel was even a means of begrudging respect, because he was like, I owe in the game, he's like, I owe you a favor, and now that I'm done with that, get the hell out of my town, as opposed to just being like, Joel, I respect you, because it was a more loving it was still begrudging, but it was more loving, it commanded more respect in the TV show as opposed to the video game. It was just, here, take this favor and get out of my face. So I was just gonna say, I think it was just really interesting to be able to see the history, and like Noah said, it was nice that Bill got the ending he deserved, as opposed to just, not only was he still bitter, but then it was kind of a kick in the pants that the one person he cared about kind of told him to screw off.
Yeah, let me jump in there, Nick. I think, go for it, Johnny.
I just want to ask a question. Why do you guys keep saying the ending that Bill deserved?
He lives a miserable, lonely existence in the video game, and the one thing that was, even though he was upset that Frank left, you can kind of get the idea that, or the notion, he was holding out hope that Frank would return. And it was just a major kick in the teeth for him to find out that the one person he cared about could absolutely care less and would rather be dead than spend the rest of his life with him.
So to jump in on that, like, you would collect notes in the video game that's, kind of cataloged Frank and Bill's deteriorating relationship. And by the end, it was a suicide note, and Frank just told Bill that he hated him, and left the relationship at that. And that was a video game. And we get something completely different in the TV show. And I think the reason why it works so effectively, Johnny, is that Joel is hardened, right? He's this war-torn, hardened, just basically lost soul in the post-apocalyptic landscape. And to have that video game version of Bill in there as well, as kind of this miserable old man just surviving without any sort of meaning, doesn't really set up an effective foil with each other, right? As when they meet. But I think when they transform Bill's character into someone who learned about the capacity of love and being able to think for others and having a purpose in this world, the show did such an incredibly effective job of setting up that foil between the transformed Bill versus the world-weary Joel in this TV show. Again, like Noah was saying, it just plays into these themes so well and just kind of enriches the overall message of the show.
It does feel like an accelerant for the purpose of Joel. I agree. The way it ends feels like an accelerant.
It was like, it's almost like they put in another pillar in Joel's character arc, and it was like this crucial missing pillar that the game kind of whiffed on.
Well, it's like Bill is a man with so much control, and Joel has lost all control. And I think they really needed this story then for the emotional impact of Bill's letter at the end, because first of all, he compares him and Joel, like, we're the same man, and Joel has already been kicked to the ground and like spit in his face, like he's lost his daughter, now he's lost the person he most cares about, and now he's being compared to this man who was able to fortify a city and have like a great love story, and now he's like, oh great.
It's also like, you got to think about the viewers as well, right, Dave? Like, we're all watching this too, and we're kind of like slogging through these brutal plot points in the first two episodes alongside Joel and Tess and Ellie. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you was like, now that you know the differences, like the video game version of Bill, you go on these adventures and you fight infected and you watch Joel and Bill and Ellie blast them away versus the episode 3 that we got with this tender love story. Like, do you have a preference for one or the other? Would you rather see the version that was depicted in the video games?
I mean, I love Nick Offerman and I love Ron Swanson, so I would have loved me some, gun toting, 24 gauge shotgun to the infected face, and it'd been very cool and very like action packed and fun. But I think for the longevity and the benefit of the story that we're watching and that they're crafting, they needed this adaptation and they needed this divergence from the video game. You needed Joel to really like I was just saying, like you needed, like it was almost like Joel's role model lost. It's like this was like the NBA. Bill was like the NBA player of the apocalyptic world. He had like everything fortified. He had hot water. He had food. He had a town. He had gas, and he never lost control.
The other thing about this story that kind of struck me, and Johnny, this is something I want to kind of pitch your way, was like when Frank arrived. I don't know if you were thinking this, was like when Frank arrived, as a non-gamer, I was trying to think how they would watch that scene, and being fed so much prestige TV, I would almost view Frank as, how is he going to ruin this for Bill? But this was just so atypical of, a story that we've never seen really, atypical, a story that we've never seen depicted before. Johnny, like, wanted to get your thoughts on like whether you felt kind of struck in that same way or
Yeah,
not.
I thought a lot about how this story was special. It's a lot of these apocalypse stories have these different glimmers of hope, and I thought this story struck a really interesting balance I've never seen because the premise is about a love story between two men, and there's this beautiful narrative and this relationship you could watch develop. And I liked that there was over a timeline, which I thought was special. You could see the glimpse and the history. It was a long relationship. And then a beautiful ending, though tragic, controlled in a devastating world, but with little hope for the future, where typically in these apocalypse stories you have this survival aspect of surviving at any cost is the goal. And that means procreation, that means children, that means, how are we going to repopulate? And this took a really unique twist on that, where like the idea of just surviving and enjoying is surviving. And I think that's unique. And I think it's interesting and it can play on both sides. Is it tragic that it ended, or is it hopeful that they enjoyed it? Who knows? That's for the viewers to decide and see how it affects the arc. But I do think that the story was well told. And I'm really interested in seeing how that drives these characters because, again, my concern was that characters that were introduced and taken away in one episode, that's a lot to go through for a TV show. I don't know what to do with that always, really. But again, I'm coming in totally blind. So,
You talk about like survival in the sense of like procreation or longevity, and I think you have that with a Joel and Ellie,
mhm.
right? Ellie's almost like kind of filling in as his daughter role, begrudgingly
and
so, right?
and the humanity hope, right? Potentially, like
Yeah,
solving it all for humans or something.
right, exactly. Yeah, so
I really like that you guys explained the foil. I think that makes a lot of sense, Stephen, that the character is a foil because it sounds like to me from the non-gamer and Noah, maybe you can confirm this as well because it sounds like you mentioned before, there's a darker edge to the game, which maybe sounds appropriate, where this show has this glimmer of hope that maybe gives an audience hope in the overall arc, where the game really explores the idea of how dark this world gets. And I don't see that as the non-gamer, but I'm seeing this hopeful version as the TV show watcher.
I also think that the game came out in 2013, and
Hmm.
the story that we would have gotten, like the faithful adaptation we would have gotten, has been done so many times
Yeah.
that I think the writers kind of were like, we have these characters. Let's do something new. Let's do something original. Let's take a whole episode and devote it to their relationship and do something that I'm the elephant in the room. Walking Dead hasn't done, right?
Yeah.
Because there's like 7,000 episodes of Walking Dead, so that's why I'm
I
okay with
can't.
it.
No, I
Literally.
can't believe it's 10 years this game has been out. I didn't even realize that.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. There's been so
Wow.
much stories like this
Yeah.
that I think they're really trying to go, hey, we did this. Can we improve on it? And I think they did that. You know.
I
And
mean,
I just want to
yeah, go for it, Noah.
I just want to say the strawberry giggle scene was adorable.
Did you
He should
like
get an
eating
Oscar, an
strawberries.
Emmy, and he should get an EGOT just for that one performance of him tasting a strawberry.
to go from
Oh, it was amazing.
To go to
I had
that-
to pause it and just enjoy it.
to go from New World Order jackboot assholes to strawberry giggles in the span of like 30 minutes. I just have to shout out, like, the writers did an incredible job of like taking us through that ride and making every step believable, right? And they did like multiple time jumps as well, and they still managed to pull it off. And I think that it's just like, this show's really well written, and like the actors also just bring their A
Can
game.
I offer one thought though? And I am glad I'm learning this now because it makes more sense when I explain it. So Frank is not really a character in the show except for letters. And I
In the
think
game, you
In the
mean.
video game.
Sorry,
in the
in the
game.
game.
But you're right. Yeah.
so Frank is not a character in the game. And that makes a lot of sense to me because as I watched his character, he didn't feel as real as Bill. And he felt, and this is my objective, not knowing perspective, he felt artificial, like too optimistic, too content. And I don't think that's bad, but it didn't feel totally human. Like it felt a little fanciful. And
Almost a little out of place, like
I don't
fantastical
know.
almost.
I'm not saying it was bad. I think the story, like I said, was good. I felt there was a little bit this like insane optimistic confidence in his character that was a little hard to relate to in this world of sadness and dread. Like he shows up one of 10 survivors, totally optimistic about love and beauty in life and just making art is I don't know, there was this a little bit lack of like awareness of the world and the gravity of the situation that I thought was not believable. I don't know. That was me.
I get it. Johnny, I get what you're saying, right? For a guy who hiked from Baltimore, where QZ collapsed, up to Boston, he seemed a little bit chipper, right? He's like, well, an Arby's is a restaurant, so there is no free meals. Kind of like, I get that, but I do think as the years go on, like for him to acclimate into this life where Bill is actively protecting him and being like, I can be your bodyguard. I can be the guy who snipes infected, and you don't have to worry about a thing. You can imagine a character kind of like settling into like, yeah, I'll paint for you then. I'll paint portraits of
I
you.
think we have to decide, and I think this is the Joel dilemma, which is a good foil again, is contentment with your own life sufficient meaning, or is there a larger, life meaning? And I think Bill sacrifices life for Frank. I don't know. I was interested in like they're not worried about the world outside of them or any future. Noah, you seem urgent to say something. Tell me.
I'm just saying, I love that you brought that up. I'm just saying, I now that you brought up, it's like a lightning hit me on the head.
Mhm.
You gave Noah the strawberry.
Gave me
giggles
a
now.
light bulb.
Gave him the
burst.
strawberry
Gave him
giggles.
Gave me the
giggles.
strawberry giggles. 'Cause I know the theme, like knowing where me, Steven, and Nick know where this show goes, and this is hopefully not a spoiler, but the theme is very much a double-edged sword, and
Yeah.
I think you just got to be careful. You just got
It's
to
like
watch your
how
back.
I
how
like
does
that,
how
daunting.
can love, how can your sense of duty and love,
Ouch.
affect your relationships with other people or impact the way that you interact with this world, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, is it a glimmer of hope or is it something worse?
Could it be a means to destruction, right? Yeah.
Yes. I love the path Johnny's going down.
Right.
He's
'Cause
thinking
I see
about
where
this.
I see where it ends.
Are you playing
It's
the
gonna
video
be-
game,
No,
young man?
I don't have time
Yeah,
for
you
that.
stop it. You
stop-
it,
you stop
boy.
that
I don't
right
have
now.
time for that.
I will say this though, like the video game, like Noah, Nick, like the video game's brutal. Like, and there is still going to be a lot of brutality that comes our way in the
I
weeks
will
ahead.
say I have not seen that brutality yet in the TV show compared to the video game. I will say that.
But that's why I say like this is still like the tension. This is like we're still getting to like meet the characters. We're still
I agree,
like you
David.
guys
I agree.
have had hour by this point. You guys have had hours with Joel and Ellie and built up like a gameplay connection with them. Like you're putting them through these survival scenarios and having them to have to survive. This episode was like, this was me and Johnny's gameplay, like us getting connected with people and getting connected with the characters.
David, I want to just add really lightly to that. It felt like the end of something to this episode. It felt like this is the end of that season 1. I'm not saying it is. Just felt like it was.
That's a good point.
Because it felt like they just launched into the actual show, which is them going on this journey.
The calm before the storm.
So maybe this is part of a. How many episodes are in the season?
No, they're not 9.
So it's what, 3 episodes each arc? Like, so maybe it's 1 through 3,
that's a good
4
point.
through 6, 7
It is
through 9.
It is pretty much following the game.
Okay.
So I think this covers
yeah.
all of chapter 3 or 4 of.
And
like,
every
12
chapter,
chapters.
every chapter feels like kind of like a season finale in the video game, so it's kind of falling on par with that.
Great.
So it doesn't really surprise any of us.
Okay.
That played the game. But can we
And-
move on to theory?
Nope.
Yeah, let's move on to
Yeah.
theories. And
I want to
so-
see if they changed or added any.
Yeah, so last week, episode 2 review, Dave, you said that Joel was going to gain a chainsaw arm.
Yeah.
You've been watching Chainsaw
And he
Man?
got
I
a
love
beautiful
Chainsaw Man.
romantic kiss instead.
You got strawberry giggles instead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And Johnny, you theorized.
No, not
that,
on the
we have-
strawberries. That was the worst line of the show. That was the worst line of the episode.
No, I love that line.
That was very.
I'm gonna put that on a shirt. I'll put on the shirt. Not on the strawberries.
I just want to let you know I'm not a whore.
Sorry, well, back to the theory. So I admit part of the struggle of this episode is I didn't develop a theory because this episode was so not about the overall direction. It was hard for me to think much more beyond it. The one theme I'll add to my theory that I'm developing is that it seems very clear to me that the show is taking Ellie and Joel into a direction where they will be challenging the traditional moral goodness and conscience that they may or should have based on a civilized society. I think the little knife stab to the head was a piece of that anger and rage and a foreshadow of what's to come. And I think the conscientious looking eye of the infected that she kills is an allusion to some type of intelligence or life in them. I'm not giving you too detailed of an answer, but I think there's that gray zone I talked about last time. I think it's developing, and I'm waiting to get to the meat of it a little bit.
I think Neil Druckmann said it best, right? When he was being interviewed for this TV show, he said that this world that Ellie and Joel are fighting through, their fight isn't with the infected. Their fight is to maintain their sense of humanity. Mm-hmm. And I think the show is doing so far a great job of depicting that. And Johnny, you nailed it on the head. It's about how do they preserve their conscience.
Welcome to the Last of Us franchise, sir.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Put your hands.
Do you still think they're going to survive, Johnny? Do you still think they're both going to survive? Season 1?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, to be honest. I haven't.
Okay.
I assume they did. I just assume they did. But I haven't thought about it.
That's an interesting pickup, though. It's interesting what Johnny picked up in developing his theory, and Ellie, does she start to see herself as less human? Is that what they were doing with that scene? The people that they're going towards in the West, are they going to see her as a human, or are they just going to see her as infected? I thought that's an interesting idea, but...
Or is she a new type of infected, right?
Yeah, or is she a new type of evolution? Is this the life is on... whatever. But as far as my theories changing, I don't really think he's going to get a chainsaw gun arm. Would it be awesome? Yes, but I still do think that there's going to be something that he's going to be physically altered, and it's going to be a severe alteration, and it's going to impact his character a lot.
We're going to close out this episode, so I wanted to thank my hosts, Noah, Nick, Dave, Johnny. Appreciate you guys being here. You guys are the best. And for our viewers, thank you for listening. Subscribe, comment on this video. Tell us what you're thinking about this show. Gang, gang. And we'll see you next week for episode 4 of The Last of Us. So thank you all for tuning into the spooky screen. We appreciate you, and good night.